Good morning, happy Friday. Welcome to the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We post a new 10 to 15 minute episode every Friday. One time a month, we have a featured voice in which we interview a prominent figure in our society. And then the rest of the Fridays, we talk about various things, anywhere from workplace wellness to micro PDs that you can do with your staff. We're here to offer you resources so that you can take some time at the end of your week and kind of reflect going into the weekend. And then Monday morning, maybe you'll revisit this episode for a refresh and kind of incorporate some things, some takeaways into your work week. So let's dive right in. I'm Kara Gonzalez-Howard. I'm one of your instructors here on the Cultural Capacity Podcast. If you haven't subscribed, we have a YouTube channel in which we post video content regularly, actually more often than we do here on the podcast networks. If you're listening on podcast networks like Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, whatever you happen to be listening on, make sure you sign up for our notifications, leave comments, feedbacks, etc., etc. You know the drill. So let's dive in. I was talking to my sister, Justine, who actually is the founder of Educator Aid, which hosts this podcast, Cultural Capacity. We were chatting last week about some various things going on in our business and our personal life, and we were talking about the concept of shifting, pivoting, and taking a rest stop. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like, being on a train or a subway or a bus, sometimes in our lives when we have something pop up, say we're on the ride of our life and we have an emergency pop up, we may have to hop out of our bus, hop onto another one, and take a detour in a different direction. Sometimes that happens instantly, depending on circumstances. Sometimes that happens gradually, and we just gradually kind of shift our direction. Sometimes, in order to make shifts happen, we have to take a complete pivot and head in the direct opposite direction of what we had planned or intended. These are not bad things. As entrepreneurs, we often get caught up in this every day, just by nature of the fact that, entrepreneurial endeavors are not predictable whatsoever. Yes, there are patterns you can follow to create an environment to have a productive and profitable business. However, there's nothing predictable about entrepreneurship. Within organizations, it can be the same story. On a large scale, organizations were at one time an entrepreneurial endeavor. And whether you're familiar with, the micro workings of building an organization or not, you can imagine that there are lots of moving pieces and parts, and when things don't work, we are required to shift. Coming from a healthcare background, I did quite a bit of shifting within my career. Best practice changes quite frequently based on results, research, interactions with patients, etc., etc. Specifically, in my experience in the past as a bedside nurse for almost 2 decades, I can attest to the fact that emergency situations do in fact arise, and sometimes your plan of care with a specific patient can completely take a turn, and there are other protocols then to follow, such as with life. It's a very good illustration actually for how we should have our mindset each morning as we encounter our day, whether it's with our families, within our homes, within our places of employment, etc. So back to this conversation with my sister Justine, I mentioned the fact that, sometimes it's required of us that we take a complete rest stop. And maybe we have something pop up in our business. Maybe it's not an emergency, but it needs addressed within a timely manner. It's easy for me to say this from personal experience, but oftentimes for myself and for others around me that I've either mentored or coached, etc., it's easy to be afraid of taking a rest stop because we are afraid of maybe getting stuck, not knowing which direction we're going to go, that can produce some anxiety. Unpredictability produces anxiety for many people. I've come to believe in life at age 41 that there are not many things that we can accurately predict within life itself. So it is easier and better for us emotionally, cognitively, etc., to kind of adjust our point of view on this as we wake up each morning and counter the day with a sense of wonder instead of predictability. I wake up now and am excited about my day because I don't have everything planned out to a T, and also I'm prepared to have to shift because of events that happen throughout the day, and that's actually a great thing. Now back to these rest stops. Why are we afraid of taking rest? Why are we afraid of sitting with thoughts and ideas that need attention? Well, it's because we would have to actually deal with things is the simple answer of it. And sometimes when we're forced to sit in silence and reflect, we become anxious. And one way to mitigate that is to go into a space of rest with the intention of focusing on 1, 2, 3 objectives that we want to try to, get a better space of closure on our next move. One that comes from thoughtfulness, reflection, not necessarily snap decisions, snap judgments. We get into a space of rest and we become highly intuitive people if we know how to exercise that muscle. We can talk about intuition in a separate episode, but for today, I just kind of want to hammer home this point of taking rest stops frequently and often. Life can be incredibly frantic, and when we become in a frantic state of mind, it's like our synapses in our brain have misfired, and sometimes we aren't able to pay attention to our intuition because of this misfiring, and until we get into a state of rest, we're not able to clearly kind of stop, evaluate where we are and where we want to go, and then reroute our path to that point. Rerouting does not always happen instantaneously, nor should it, because rerouting is a pretty big decision. We need to come out of decision-making processes feeling at ease within our decision, feeling calm, feeling confident, and able to move forward step by step in a very succinct, calm way. Now, within these spaces of rest, does it mean that all of our best laid intentions are going to be completely actualized and realized? No, of course not. We're going to have to make those pivots within our journey. We're going to have to make those shifts. But the space that we can spend and the time that we can spend in actual rest and reflection is the game changer. Decisions made in frantic states often produce frantic, disorganized results that are never what you intended and leave you feeling maybe like inadequate or not up to the task for the next time around. This can build into a sense of just not being good at what you do, feeling like you have imposter syndrome, even if you've been an expert for many, many years in what you do, and you are really good at it. These times that we make frantic decisions can ultimately break us and do break us a lot of the time. When we give ourselves permission to rest, it completely changes the narrative on how we're able to move forward and how we treat ourselves in that process. You can make a decision from a place of rest that, we're going to look forward to this plan of action as a tentative thing with moving parts, right? It's a map with moving parts, and we're good with it. But we have a loose structure of where we're going moving forward that we got from a complete place of being in touch with our intuition, really thinking through processes and thinking through our ability and resources and all of the things that go into making decisions for the future. Now you might be asking, how do I actually make room for a space of rest to make these decisions? Well, it's not necessarily easy, but it's something that you're going to have to shift your mindset around in life in general. If you're sitting here thinking, well, I just can't possibly operate this way, I have way too much going on. Well, that sounds like a big problem. And perhaps you do need to create a space of rest just to iron that out. The fact that you have no time to take rest is an issue. It's an issue for your health. First of all, your bodily health. Without your body, you will be ineffective in anything and everything that you do. We need our bodies to be in tip-top condition to be able to deliver any kind of productive output that we want to put into the world. When I say tip-top condition, I mean a healthy balance of mind, body, and spirit, and that's different for everybody. Mind, we all need time to enrich ourselves in different ways, further education, whether that be formally or informally. Within the body realm, that's a very big contributor of how our general health is. What we put into our body, what fuels us, if we're using food as fuel or food as covering for our anxiety. Those are some other things for another episode on another day. How we move our body throughout the day, if we're walking enough as a baseline. We should all be getting at least 30 minutes of walking in every day. As a baseline, and that's not to mention some of the other things that we should be putting our body through with strength training, yoga, keeping ourselves limber, etc. That's just part of being human and part of being alive, and we have to make space for it if we want to exist in this world in a way that is pleasurable, productive, and good for our well-being. The last thing, so spirit, that's something that is highly personal. I'm not really going to get into too much today, but spirit is something where you're connected to something bigger than yourself, whether that spirit is in the form of a higher power, is in the form of community, etc. Something needs to happen where you're slightly giving of yourself in different ways, emotionally and in communion with other people or other thought processes, meditation, etc. Each time I take periods of rest away from my normal responsibilities and I provide myself space for what I really need, I am always able to walk away from that time with a sense of relaxation, calm, and joy about my decisions to move forward and shift and pivot in different ways in my life. I hope that you found this little podcast useful this morning. I hope it gives you a little bit of insight and inspiration going into your weekend. Try to take some rest. It's a natural time to do so, and don't let anybody tell you different. You know you need it, and you need to start allowing space for what you need in your life. It is your life indeed, and what we do with our one life here on earth, I think has great implications for how we leave our legacy behind us. So I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you back next Friday on the Cultural Capacity Podcast.